Welcome back to Osteo Talk, where we talk about bones and the animals of those bones. Today we have the rat. The rats have gotten a bad reputation over the course of human history, yet based on many recent studies of rodent behavior, as well as evidence that gerbils, not rats, were the cause of the bubonic plague, it may not be entirely deserved. A study suggests that scientists believe repeat epidemics of the Black Death, which arrived in Europe in the mid-14th century, instead trace back to gerbils from Asia, and we'll go more into that later in the video. Rats are found on every continent on Earth except for Antarctica. Rats live almost everywhere humans dwell. They spend most of their relatively short lives doing three things, and that's foraging, socializing, and mating. Most distinguishing features that we will notice on this skull is the teeth. So you get a good view of these. Now, rats have only one set of teeth for the duration of their lives. They possess 12 molars and 4 open-rooted incisors that grow continuously throughout their life. And we can take a look at those here. Alright, now about the plague, the Black Death, the bubonic plague. In the new study, researchers from the University of Oslo analyzed climate data going back to the 14th century, looking for information about the weather conditions that coincided with outbreaks of the bubonic plague. Or Black Death. Specifically, the scientists analyzed tree ring records from Europe and compared them with 7,711 historical plague outbreaks. Their findings, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, contradict the commonly held belief that rats hosted the disease-carrying fleas responsible for causing plague outbreaks. Niels Christian Stenseth, one of the study's authors, told BBC News that in order for the weather to be optimum for an outbreak caused by flea-infested rats, you would need warm summers with not too much precipitation, dry but not too dry. This was not the case. Stenseth says, according to him, he and his colleagues looked at the broad spectrum of climate incidences, and there is no relationship between the appearance of plague and the weather. Instead, they say, outbreaks of the Black Death seem to correspond with weather patterns in Asia, not Europe itself. According to their analysis of the climate data, plague outbreaks in Europe can be linked to the years that Central Asia experienced wet springs followed by warm summer. While such conditions would have been terrible for black rats, the scientists point out they would have created ideal breeding conditions for another plague-bearing rodent, the gerbil. Found across Central Asia, great gerbils, also known as giant gerbils, can grow to adult sizes of about 15 to 20 centimeters, or 6 to 8 inches, in body length. Stenseth and his team, I might be butchering that name, but that's the name I'm going with. Stenseth and his team believe that after such ideal weather conditions cause an explosion in the Asian gerbil population, gerbils bearing fleas infected with the plague bacteria Yersinia pestis made their way to Europe along the bustling Silk Road trade routes. According to Stenseth, we show that wherever there were good conditions for gerbils and fleas in Central Asia, some years later the bacteria shows up in harbor cities in Europe and then spreads across the continent. Though it peaked in the mid-14th century, bubonic plague resurfaced in periodic outbreaks over the centuries to come, killing a total of some 100 million people by the 1800s. The threat continues even today, according to the World Health Organization. Nearly 800 cases of plague were reported worldwide in 2013, including 126 deaths. According to the new study's authors, the fact that the plague went away and recurred intermittently over the centuries rather than lingered also indicates that rats were not the culprits. And if they were, the plague would have endured as long as rats were on hand to carry it. Last year, in another similar challenge to long-held beliefs about the Black Death, scientists working with plague DNA extracted from 14th century skeletons suggests the disease could have been airborne rather than passed through flea bites. Researchers from the new study say they will follow up on their work with similar DNA analysis using ancient skeletons. Significant genetic variation across time periods would indicate that outbreaks were due to newly arrived waves of disease rather than resurgences from Europe's existing rat problem, offering further support for the gerbil theory. As Stenseth puts it, if we're right, we'll have to rewrite that part of history.